Our next presentation is Yiscah Smith and Mar Martinez. Mar Martinez is an interdisciplinary artist specializing in sculptural painting. Her work dissects dominance, aggression, and power dynamics through the lens of a culturally enforced binary system. Her work is informed by her Syrian and Latinx heritage and has evolved into dialogue about the exploitative nature of unchecked power imbalances. She received a BFA in painting and a BA in art history at the University of Central Florida. We have just heard from Yiscah Smith, but for those who weren't able to attend the first session, Yiscah is a spiritual activist, educator, mentor, and meditation guide who addresses the spiritual practice of encountering the divine spark within. In fact, Yiscah views Judaism as a spiritual practice. She relies on Jewish spiritual teachings to inform and uplift her students and audiences, acting as a compass, gently guiding them to their unique inner selves. Without further ado, Yiscah Smith and Mar Martinez.
Shalom again. Shalom, Mar. Hi.
Hi.
So I guess I imagine I'm supposed to go first again, so I will. This parsha by Yael. It comes at a very broken time in our history. It took place the day after the first Yom Kippur. And it happened when it's really started on Shavuot, when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to receive the Torah, and he received the luchot, the tablets. He came down, and by the time he was coming down, we miscalculated. We thought he wasn't coming down, and there was that whole incident with the golden calf, and the tablets broke. And then he went right back up on the 17th of Tammuz and spent 40 days fasting and praying with God not to destroy all of the Am Yisrael, the Bnei Yisrael. So he came back down on Rosh Chodesh Elul, and that's when God said, now I will forgive, but now you're going to bring up the second set of tablets. This is going to be a collaborative effort this time. You'll bring them up and I'll inscribe them. And then he came back down 120 days after he first came up. This is the going up and down 3 times, again at the end of the third 40th day period. And the reconnection, the reconciliation through forgiveness was so strong. The bond was so much greater because now there was a collaborative effort. That light was shining out from his face, so great he had to wear a veil. Now you would think everyone would be joyous. Everyone would be so happy. Well, God forgave us. Look at Moshe Rabbeinu, is so beaming with light. And the day after Yom Kippur, the day after this occurred, is when this parsha took place. We were broken inside. Has it ever happened in your own lives? You do something and you realize, I hurt this person, not intentionally, but I hurt this person, and I regret, and I admit, and I want to ask this person for forgiveness. And the person forgives you. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but when that's happened to me, there's that moment right after I'm forgiven. Well, I'm almost disappointed because I haven't forgiven myself yet. Like, don't let me off the hook so quickly, because I'm still feeling the pain of having hurt and compromised our relationship. What happened was we lost our self-confidence in our ability to live in the unity that we were experiencing at Har Sinai, with ourselves, with each other, with Hashem. And although Hashem forgave us, we wondered how long it would be before we forgave ourselves. So what did Moshe do to help us repair, return, and restore? Without being commanded by God. He gathered us together. He brought us together in a kehillah. And he did this in order to restore our unity. He didn't just speak to a few of the elderly, like the 70 elders. He got us all together and he talked about Shabbat. He talked about Truma, about building a Mishkan. These are two. One is in time, Shabbat. One is in space, the Mishkan, that brings us together. We come together on Shabbat because we're not emphasizing our unique qualities to create. Rather, we're sitting together and bathing, so to speak, in the splendor, just immersed in the splendor of the one creator. And with the Mishkan, we're all bringing different trumot to bring one Mishkan, one holy, sacred edifice, building that will be the home for the Shekhinah. And it was so unified that it even looked like only one person built it, according to the Midrash. So this parsha is about healing brokenness and restoring unity. We were nishba, we were mashabah, and we didn't sense that achdut. So in gathering us together, Moshe conveyed that we made the golden calf because we weren't sensing our own unity. So now let's make something that will help us cultivate the practice of achdut, of unity. So he gathered all of us together. He spoke to us together in community to realistically convey that the first and foremost important thing we do is to be united. And when we become united in time, and when we become united in space, that's when we sense the presence of the divine, which is what happens on Shabbat, and which is what happens in the Mishkan, later to then evolve into the Beit HaMikdash. And each one of us has a Mikdash Ma'at within ourselves, as it says in the Gemara, that when the temple was destroyed, the Shekhinah went into Galut with each of us. So this invites us to build our own Mishkan within mind, body, heart, soul, bringing all the different parts of us that could be separate, that could be vying for attention and competing for each other, instead to bring them together in harmony, in achdut. And that only strengthens rather than weakens the integrity of this connection. So that's, I believe, as we say, al regel achat, on one foot, so to speak, the summary of what I shared with you, Mar, in our wonderful Chavruta sessions. So I turn it over to you to help us see the beauty of your creating healing and restoring unity.
Yeah, well, thank you, Yiscah, for sharing. Like, I had a wonderful time working with you and Dear. I appreciate that you started this initiative to get people working collaboratively, because a lot of artists, I think, they hole up and there's not a lot of interference from the outside world, but being able to work with someone that's educated and knowledgeable and getting to think conceptually, it became like a platform to work on something that's a little outside of my own comfort zone. Typically I'm a painter, and getting to work and sit in a way like rooted in language had me thinking a little bit outside the box. And in response to Yiscah's teachings, I had wanted to do something a little bit more sculptural. So I created a type of tzedek box inspired by her teachings. And I saw clear parallels from the community coming together to create like the Mishkan. And I aimed to create a functional, but also conceptually based ritual object in response to the Torah portion. So I used a mixture of contemporary techniques like laser cutting and paired it with archaic materials such as gold leaf to kind of reference the way that ritual is significant and how it plays a role that can be implemented in modernity, especially since there was a theme of coming together and finding a unity, especially through the idea of Shabbat. Like, there are ways that we take the teaching of the past and make them relevant to today. So it's not something that has like an expiration date. So I thought that the merging of those two approaches was appropriate for what we talked about. And the work that I made, it's created with concentric circles, which it's a way of referencing unity and togetherness from a formal structure. And the gold leaf, it references when the Mishkan and the ideas of creating a space for Shinash to rest. So we're like, that was spread through each of us, and we have an ability to kind of be a vessel, not only to hold that like love and that joy and that forgiveness, but then also as a community we function as a vessel, and there's these open areas of space for light to kind of emanate out. And these concentric circles are also supported on these posts, which I think can symbolize the way that we have the ability to kind of support each other through this togetherness, and we rely on a balance within ourselves as well as our outer whole to be able to function well as a society that can care for others while finding like a wholeness within ourselves through these through this like philosophy. So in the divine presence will only reveal itself when we're united, which connects to the concept of the tzedek box. So there's this idea of, you know, charity and community care that is really important, and we invite the Mishkan through care through our community, and we're able to achieve this through unity. So by coming together and uniting through our differences, I think that the unity we can create as a whole is greater than the sum of its disparate parts. So, and I think the very first time we spoke, we talked a lot about the idea of like the light of the Shabbat candles emanating out, and that was something that really stuck with me. So the like transparentness of this structure, it's able to not only capture but kind of reflect light out of it, and you also see how the negative space is just as important for defining this object as the positive space. So the air and the energy can kind of flow through it. And then the shadows also reference like the way that this piece, like depending on how it's lit, it can expand to take up massive amounts of space. So that's kind of what I had in mind when I was going about this. Like, I hope I did you proud, Yiscah, because I really felt like I went well this time.
Oh, I hope I did you proud. Devere, thank you for creating this opportunity for me as a educator, as a aspiring scholar, can work with an artist. I can actually share some of my teachings, and actually this teaching was based on a teaching from Reb Shalom Brat, Zichrono Livracha, here in Yerushalayim, and he's up in Gan Eden now, probably receiving so much nachat from you, Mar. He was one of my most important teachers, and that we've been able. I've never worked before with an artist like this. I mean, this is truly, to quote Heschel, this is radically amazing, and this brings the achdut. This brings the healing of the brokenness. So, thank you, Mar, so much, and Devere for allowing us to work together like this. Kol hakavod. Tizkele mitzvot lagamrei.
Yiscah, I'm curious if you have any feelings about these concentric circles and what that means in the project of building the Mishkan. What symbolisms do these concentric circles bring out in you?
What it brings out in me, which is different and actually opposite the midrash that I quoted about the Mishkan, is I see diversity. I see unity in diversity, dafka, because they're not the same. And but as Mar pointed out, they're held together, they're bonded together through these posts, and that would be our belief in the divine, our holding by the Torah. I find the differences. I see the circles as being unique. Each one's different. Each one's is its own, and yet it connects. It connects through its own piece. That's how I see it. So,
thank you. As we continue into these conversations, we're going to enter into a new one that also deals with the spiraling circles. The divine bodies above spiral around us, and to see kind of this spiraling within us that Yiscah and Mara have explored, the open air that's the space in between, but the circling energy of the Vayakel, of bringing us together, creates both diversity to be different and an aspiration to come together.